extended version. So you're some of the first people that are going to get a chance to see it, and it's 10 minutes longer than the people that see it on TV are going to get. So it's cool.
Okay.
And it's premiering on February 27th at 10 p.m.
So this is kind of like what we do, the true crime genre, which some people, say, oh, true crime, it's dirty in its own way. But I think it's the most important thing we're doing right now, and I'm glad you guys came out to see it, because there's an opportunity here to see from the lead investigator's perspective what happened in the case that hasn't been seen before. So I think you get a real education, and it's really well done.
I'll open it up for some questions in a little bit, but first we're going to welcome Greg Kading, original LAPD detective, and Anthony Hemingway, executive producer and director, to the stage.
Hi guys, how you doing? Awesome.
All right, here we are.
Ooh, the pressure. I can't see nobody.
I know. It's bright. It's bright. So I'd like to just go back a little bit, because obviously, does everybody understand who Greg is in the show?
Yeah.
Good.
No.
No. Yeah. You want to tell people who you are in the show?
Can't see the resemblance?
Well, tell them who you are in the show.
Well, so Detective Greg Kading in the show is portrayed by Josh Duhamel.
So he's basically the first guy you see. And what was it like, sort of bringing your story that you lived in the real world to this world?
It's not what was it like, what is it like? Because it's still very surreal. Like even just here right now, it's still surreal having this experience. And I'm probably the most blessed guy in the world. And to be able to have this story being told the way that Anthony and Kyle and the rest of the team put it together, I just am so proud. And being able to take a story that's so important to so many people and putting it together in this type of manner and allowing the story to kind of hopefully bring some resolution to people. That's what was really important to me, and I think that the project does that.
Yeah, that's important, and it's important to have a partner in that. Do you feel like you guys were partners in that?
Absolutely. It was really awesome at any point when you're telling a real story about real people, and in a human way like this will be done. It's really great to be able to rely on someone for details, and just to make sure that I think we're respecting, the lives of the people. It's like to realize and understand the fight and the charge that it was for justice, and to be able to look and see and understand that someone really, I think, actually got out there and was able to really navigate through all of that journey. It was really beautiful to be able to rely and to look to Greg and just to continue to just ask questions and to understand more into what it was like. How did it feel when you were able to go see and talk to Miss Wallace, and tell me that story. I want to know, because I want to make sure that we're able to really pour in every bit of morality here and respect and love on this quest.
Yeah, and you're sitting by the monitor watching. After you guys talk about it, it's happening. How's that feel when you're watching it?
It was really, what gave me so much comfort, because it's awkward for me. I mean, it's not my world. I, come from a law enforcement world, and their dedication and devotion to getting the story right was of utmost important. And Anthony and Kyle and the writing team, that passion and commitment to tell this super important story, which really is 3 stories in one. We're dealing with a 1997 investigation with another detective, and then we have this story where I resurrect the case, and then we have the whole thing with Biggie and Tupac, and all of those elements coming together and trying to blend it together. It's not an easy task, but somehow the magic of it all took place, and to sit there and know that the facts of the matter were going to be the foundation of the story. And like I said before, and I don't think this could have been done better.
Anthony, maybe you could talk a little bit about the challenges you faced weaving those three storylines together, and what was that like?
It's just trying to keep your head wrapped around it, you know, on a daily basis, because as it interweaves throughout and the pendulum swings, and, you know, I think as it unfolds, you know, it changes in terms of the percentage of who we really, I think, focus on and lean into over the course of the season. But it was really hard. It was like just as you do with any story like this, there's so much material that was done, including Greg's book, you know, but of course knowing that like what we were telling had its own intention. It wasn't really any one perspective, you know, or a real adaptation of his book, you know. It was just really trying to figure out what was our journey here. And really trying to make sure that we were being fair to each and trying to balance that tightrope. But it was just reminding ourselves that, you know, the beautiful thing here is that the investigations really allow us to really find the awesome opportunity in, you know, humanizing them. And that's what's so special here. That's so different than any documentary or anything else that has been done with their story.
You have the time to really...
Yeah, you know, and it was the great engine. It's almost like a procedural that really is able to really wrap you in and be engaging and compelling and tell this story through these investigations, but along the way we're able to breathe life into them and look at what the real tragedy is in my mind, you know, which was the fact that all we've been told and fed through the media has been negative, and it's all been about the beef between the two of them. You know, but the opportunity to really kind of find, you know, way more than that and see the friendship between the two of them and let that, for me, really kind of speak to us today. You know, it's like every day we wake up with just the disgusting, pervasive news of all this killing and you know, these kids and these senseless murders and all this stuff, and it's just, it's frustrating and upsetting and just disgusting. And so for me, it's an opportunity for us to, you know, figure out ways on how to better communicate, you know, and because, you know, there are repercussions and things that come from our actions. So, you know, that's one of the bigger things of trying to find out how to really get in here and let it really resonate and be relatable. But it was really trying to define each time period as a visual experience and make sure that it's not confusing, you know, but it also really ties in and you see the duality from both sides of both detectives as well as the sides of both, you know, Big and Pac. So that was the challenge of, you know, from the beginning. I think once we really got into it and owned it, we were able to really kind of continue to just find more nuances and more ways to really kind of continue to flesh it out and elevate it.
You know, I can see Greg had a lot of history here, a lot of emotional history here. Did you have any emotional history with this story?
Absolutely. You know, just the two of them and their music alone was the soundtrack to my childhood, you know, and so there was a large resonance and effect that they had on me as a young black man, you know, seeing them as we were around the same age, you know, and so realizing and seeing what they were talking about, you know, what they were sharing, what they were educating us on, you know, and being the voice for many, you know, around the world. They were some, you know, two special cultural treasures that really, I think, affected many people. And it was universal. And I think, you know, just to understand and see from our culture that, you know, because you don't have a stage doesn't mean to say that you're not valuable, you know, and just to see them at every moment throughout, you know, even with Big before he was a celebrity, which is why I love this opportunity to find that entry point, was to just to see that and just to, again, see that hunger and that love. And so through this, at the end of it, like I'm hoping to reinvigorate and inspire the dreams again, you know, and allow people to really figure out how to, you know, stay strong and continue, you know, changing the game and changing the narrative.
Greg, why do you think it's gone so long without any arrests?
These cases were just minefields. As Anthony just alluded to, there was just so much miscommunication and intentional, miscommunication. Had everybody taken the time, I think, to step back a little bit and reflect, whether it was the cops or whether it was the people involved in these killings and the associates of those people, and been able to just have a little be more circumspect and communicate. These were senseless murders. They didn't need to happen, and it really came down to just a lack of communication and a lack of willingness to understand somebody else's perspective and ways of seeing things. But as time went on, like we saw in the pilot here, these guys that were in a position to help with the investigations, they just weren't telling the cops what they needed to know to make forward progress. And we rely on that. We rely on witness information, accurate witness information, or we can't make any progress. So the cases were stymied from the beginning, both Pac and Biggs. And as time went on and we got a little bit more resourceful and pushed a little bit harder, we began to create some cracks in the armor. And as you watch this series, you can see how we exploited those cracks and how we got to the information that we needed to pull a conclusion out of all of this, at least for me.
It's interesting because of your investigation, we're at the point where a television series is happening, and yet still, people don't understand what really happened. This is going to be sort of the first time where people understand sort of the scope of what really happened. So are you ready to tell us what really happened?
I could, I suppose. But I would just encourage you, I think the pilot itself is compelling enough to make everybody want to come back, and each one's going to give you more and more information, and it's going to whet your appetite. But by episode 10, by the finale, you'll be full, and you'll be satisfied.
We talk about one scene, the actual scene of the assassination, the murder, I thought was very well done. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
That was really, it was beyond surreal, and anytime you're reenacting real life that you're aware of, especially, I think, just, comes with its own challenges. And, again, just here right now with all of what's happening, these kids falling by the wayside every day, whether it's cop shootings or just, from their own communities or whatever it is, it's awful. And to, in this time, I want to just share the crazy thing about that particular scene was we filmed it literally a week after that anniversary. And so it was really, 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 really just kind of emotional for everybody. And we had a lot of support on the crew who actually was there, and to continue to find a lot of support and just offerings on how, to get all the details and the footage that we found actually that gives it such credibility, like that we really discovered after we shot it and decided to intercut it, to heighten and elevate it and make it really, really resonate and visceral, was even in and of itself like wowing for myself. I was like, man, we had just to realize that, it's not at all the intention to glamorize it, but just to let it have the impact of how awful and tragic, it was. So it was really, a heavy lifting, just to prepare to do it, to really think about all the beats and elements and things that went into it, from the beginning of that night to the very end, and just to recreate it and stage it. It was, it was one of those things where like it shadows the process with such a feeling, you know, that I think, and I'm thankful that everyone that was on board, crew and cast, like, understood what we were doing and why we were telling the story, and, you know, was in sync on that. And I think, you know, we were all really lockstep trying to, you know, hit every detail for the right reason. But it's never easy, you know, and it's beyond surreal, and it just makes you really think about, you know, life and in those moments, and just kind of, yeah, it's even hard to talk about. Excuse me.
What was it? Were you there that day, Greg? Were you there that day, that night?
At the Peterson Auto Museum?
Yeah.
When we shot it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
What was it like for you? You've been chasing this case forever, and here you are, they're recreating the crime scene.
Well, like Anthony said, we were doing it almost to the day of the anniversary of Biggie's murder. That in and of itself was really resonating because, you know, there had been a little monument. You know, fans come every year and leave their votives and stuff, and so that was still kind of real. And here we are at the place it all happened, at the same intersection, you know, resurrecting that event. And I don't know, it's tough because it's exciting and it's awesome, but it's also so, you know, it's tragic. It's just like you're there because somebody's life was snuffed out and for no reason, you know, and the beginning of just a future that is now untold. And it's weird to, you know, tell a story about somebody's death.
Should we open it up to some questions from the audience?
Now we can see you.
Now we can't see you.
I know.
Yeah, why don't we start now?
First off, I want to say this is like the best depiction I've seen of both Biggie and Pac. Like, it beats the Notorious movie. It beats very spot on. I wanted to ask, will this series further highlight the Clinton administration and the theory that their administration, the FBI, had something to do with these murders? And I ask that because I noticed the one scene where the detectives leave out the room, and then there's the zoom out where it's focused on Clinton's picture, and then you cut to the scene of Biggie and Pac freestyling, and Pac brings up the Clinton administration, and it cuts to the next scene.
I don't know if is it still working? I thought I turned it off, sorry. We don't particularly get into that story that deep. You know, a lot of those were just really kind of visual clues on helping us really ground the period, you know, organically. That way we didn't have to rely on a lot of chyrons to continue to flash the screen to help you navigate 3 different timelines. So that was really why a lot of those clues were used.
Right here. Yeah, maybe.
Hi, well, first I want to say thank you guys. This has been fantastic. I think everybody here knows I'm very excited to be here. But I wanted just to ask you, because I'm working on I'm working on an unsolved hip hop story. My friend worked for Jay-Z when she was 13, and she was thrown over a building in the Bronx when she was 26. So I want to tell the 12 years in between that. And I'm worried because it's still an unsolved hip hop murder. There's still a person. Do you ever think about that when you were doing this, that it's unsolved, the killer's out there? And what advice would you have for me in order to tell this story without getting sued by some of the people, but also not getting killed? I'm really concerned about the person. When I did the funeral, the cop was telling me the person's probably here. When I interviewed Mr. C for the Who Killed Sonia Morrison thing, they were like, the person might be listening. Are you worried at all as a cop or involved in this that somebody might not like that you're telling the story?
Personally, I have too much faith and trust in God to know that, you know, I walk steady with the armor every day. And there's no malice or any, she's recording, look at her. I just know, but seriously, like, you know, we're telling a human story not for any you know, malice reason. And it's really, again, you know, once we understand and realize the intention on this, and while we're telling it, allows us to really, I think, navigate this journey, you know. Much of what we're telling isn't a surprise. You know, I did The People versus O.J. Simpson, so it's very much like that show where we really pull the curtain back and really start to tap into the humanity and understanding the behaviors of how this story affected people. And again, allowing, you know, this opportunity to drag this story forward and just be a mirror for us to really kind of see where we are, how much more work we have to do to you know, grow and heal as a people and move forward. So no, I'm not, I don't walk around, you know, with a spirit of fear in my life at all. You know, I really can't allow that to really distract. You know, what I feel is my purpose to be really sharing these stories.
You had a question, right?
And I got Big Frederick over here. No.
There's that.
A question I had is, what it took to really talk to Ms. Wallace about this case throughout the whole shooting?
We didn't really fully have a full conversation with her. We, in the beginning, wanted to approach her so she was aware of what we were wanting to do. And really the reason for that was just to be respectful and to, you know, have the right level of sensitivity with this material at the same time and ushering the story out. And, you know, she's ill right now, you know, and so of course we were not trying to completely badger her. But I'm thankful that at least Aisha Hines, who plays her in the show, connected with her. And to me, I'm happy for that. You know, I didn't need all of us really trying to get in and sit down and try to impress her for no reason, but the fact that Aisha finally made a connection and got to talk with her, did it all for me.
Let's go all the way in the back.
Yeah. Hello. This is for Detective Gray. There's two questions. What surprised you most about working on this case? And do you worry about any backlash towards, like, that this case is like 20 years old, so I assume people involved in this murder are still around. So do you worry about any backlash towards that?
No, I don't personally worry about it. You know, I kind of feel the same way as Anthony. I have a very strong faith. But aside from that, you know, as an investigator, you're not going to be very effective pursuing investigations if you're afraid of the people that you're investigating. Yeah, don't worry about it. You know, I self-published my book, and my book points some pretty direct fingers at some pretty powerful people. And it is what it is. Let the truth speak for itself. So I don't worry about it. The most surprising thing for me about the case itself, and this is kind of an oxymoron, but how complicatedly simple it was. And it got so convoluted, and it's frustrating for something to be so complicated and simple at the same time. But we didn't know that until we knew that.
I just want to say first off, this was an amazing ballad. This is for Anthony.
Thank you.
You said you grew up with listening to both Tupac and Biggie, obviously. So first question is, did that play any bias as far as how you were casting or how you wanted to shoot each individual? And secondly, the last scene, what What were you envisioning? You do that whole thing.
Great question. First off, yes, it was challenging because, again, as for myself, wanting to, again, be, respectful and truthful with telling these stories. It's important, I think, to, strive to really get everything as correct as possible. So I decided to take the risk of really doing a large search. I went and talked to the team and got everyone's support with putting out a huge casting call all over social media. I started it on my pages, and then it continued to get shared. And we were at the time looking for the new voice for Pac, the new voice for Biggie, and the new voice for Puff. And I wanted to really find the talent and the actors, whether they were brand spanking new or not, that really connected to where we were entering these characters, and also again, to try to find, have the opportunity where there was no association to what you've seen them in before, so it didn't come with any baggage that would hopefully, unnecessarily distract from this experience. And we were blessed to find Wavy Jones, who comes in and crushes Big. Like, to know who he is as an artist himself, again, the starting point where we are entering into Big's life, which was prior to celebrity, seeing him hustle and just dream and want to get to where he aspired to go. That is who Wavy Jones is right now. So he came in and did the work and crushes it. And he's such a beautiful soul, and just to understand, to see who he is even in his own life and his relationship with his mother, again, was reflective of Miss Wallace and Big's relationship. And we get in and we tell that story in the season, throughout. And so that was really awesome. And, Mark Rose, who, plays Pac, he had played him very briefly in Straight Outta Compton. He was Pac in that little small brief recording booth scene. And he was excited to really come back. He originally had got cast when John Singleton was gonna do All Eyes on Me. But when he, didn't follow through on it, Mark, fell out of it as well. So he was really, really, really hungry to come in here and be able to take this opportunity and dispel, again, the disparity of what people have been given about, these two men and young men at that. We forget that they were kids, they were young. And so there was so much innocence there. And this tragedy is what really, really kind of resonated us to, there was the question that we reminded ourselves every day, about thinking about the possibilities of who they could have been, and so that was the thing that continued to push us to, to delve into the story and really find those answers that really inspired what, we get to chronicle in the show. And Luke James has been, doing his thing, and he just again had the essence and the just the energy that Puff has, and these guys are smart. They were in their own right having opportunity to be more again than I think the surface of what we've all seen. And that's where we've tried to go in the show and humanizing them and just understanding who they are and what they had to deal with. This, analogy I say all the time is we all can pull a tooth, but it don't make not one of us a dentist. And so it's that thing of really trying to understand the psychology and the mentality behind all this stuff. So it was exciting to take that risk and be confident in it and just dive in and do the work. And the scene in the end, it's funny because I read that script in the beginning and I almost didn't do the show. I had done a pilot a year before that had a lot of the same tones that this has. So, as artists and filmmakers, you try to continue to just, grow and spread your wings and continue to find other stories you haven't told before. But understanding that everything happens for a reason, and it was something and a reason why it kept speaking to me, and I decided to wake up and you know, do it. And so I read the scene and I was like, wait a minute. Hold up, like, you mean what? They running around a yard like point with guns and machine guns and shooting at each other. But before the sprinkler, no, I added the sprinkler. You know, the thing of reading that scene, honestly, it was a serious thing, again, as we wake up every day and, you know, not to want to promote that, you know, it was the thing of, why am I going to get behind telling that story? You know, I had an issue with it, and I had to talk to Kyle about it, and that's when I discovered that that was a real story, like that happened. That really happened, it was truth. But the thing is that, again, we forget that they were kids. They were young, you know, and the fact that that was their reality, they were just having fun. So for me, I wanted to find a poetic, you know, story in it and add the water and the sprinkler to make it feel like it was water guns. You know, as every kid runs around and plays, you know, it was just that thing of really wanting to try to give it that poetic license. But that was the thing, is like, you know, we see these things and we have these visceral reactions, because I did, and I was just like, I'm not doing the scene, like, we need to talk about this, because I don't agree with it. And then, of course, I had to figure it out that it was a real story, and so then that opened me up. And then I just wanted to really find out what it was about the scene, you know, and so having that reflection of those kids, we end on that, of them being kids and enjoying life, you know, and being together as friends was the beautiful thing that I took away from.
Over here.
Thank you for the story. I actually lived in LA right near the intersection where Biggie died, so it definitely has like some type of importance to me, but I had a two-part question. So firstly, how did the linkage with USA happen? Because I typically don't think of USA like having hip-hop viewers. So I wanted to know how that happened. And also, how did so many things, this is for the detective, how did so many things get lost with the investigation? There was a lot of things that didn't happen with the investigation. And what does that speak to in terms of LAPD? Like, do you think it's because of racism? Is it because folks just didn't think their lives were a priority? Like, if you can give some insight into that.
Sure. You want to answer the first part?
I mean, yeah, I can answer both parts. Like, the systemic injustices that happen, continuing to happen. And throughout the show, you see that. We deal with that. We don't pull punches on the cop story of it all. Of really exposing, you know, you see and dig in there and realize that, you know, there are real and good people in here trying to do what cops are supposed to do, which is protect and serve, you know. But then, of course, we see the whole flip other side of it as well. I don't forgot the first question because I got so excited. Oh, yeah, you know, honestly, that was the thing for me. Again, the first clue, I was like, why USA telling this story didn't add up, you know, and I, again, have to remember and remind myself to, you know, sometimes as we try to get things, there's so many distractions that try to get in your way from doing what you're supposed to be doing. And, you know, I had to just kind of step back and realize that, you know, this story needs to be told when I got to that place. And to know the fact that USA wanted to support it and get behind it, I was happy, you know, and they got behind it very strongly and beautifully and have, you know, really supported us in telling this story as truthful as we can. So I was really happy about that. And I love, you know, finding new opportunities and helping crack the mold for people. I'm doing a pilot for CBS right now here in the city, and you know, it's a show where we're able again to, you know, tell the stories that haven't been told. You know, the lack of diversity that they've had on their network for years, you know, I'm really hoping that I'm gonna be able to change that. You know, so it's again exciting to want to do that. And you know, and help drag them along and wake them up, you know, and change the narrative again.
Hey, we have one more question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just quickly, just the attitude of the department. It was a combination of things. There was, you know, some detectives who are just going to have an attitude of indifference. Listen, you don't want to tell us what happened, fine. We won't do anything about it. And that's a real attitude. You know, it all comes down to the individual detectives and what their, you know, what their personal ethical drives are and how much they care. You know, in Los Angeles, 60% of gang murders go unsolved. 60% of gang murders go unsolved. And when you have that combination of maybe an attitude of indifference and you have people that aren't willing to cooperate with the police, that's the results. That's what you get. I don't personally feel that it was necessarily a racial issue. Most of the detectives, or at least half the detectives that worked on Biggie's case, were African American. Like Kelly Cooper, the original great detective, and he worked really hard. He couldn't get anywhere either. And my partner, Bokeem, not my real partner, you know, I mean, probably one of the most knowledgeable guys about hip hop culture and gangs in Los Angeles, and that's why I brought him on board. I was like, you're the perfect guy. If we're going to solve this, I need you. And so, you know, we never looked at it from a perspective of black and white. It was just guys that had their lives taken from them, and we owed it to their families to figure it out. Back to the Letta Wallace inference, you know, there's this scene that is in the pilot between Jimmy Simpson, the detective, back in '97, where he speaks with Miss Wallace and she describes her son. That was a real scene for me in my life with Valletta. And I can't watch that without it resonating how deeply. I wanted to solve that for her. And, you know, we came up short, but I think she knows. You know, I'm very confident that she knows what happened.
First of all, thank you all for putting this body of work together. Where does this rank in the bodies of work that you've worked on in the past, with it being such a high profile, not only hip hop cold case, but pop culture cold case? And secondly, I know you did work on The Wire, right? How did you get the brother, Jeremy Hector, I believe his name? Jamie Hector?
Yeah.
It looked weird for me to see him on the other side of the law. How bad he was, how terrible he was for life. So, the two-part question, where does this rank for you, and how did you figure casting him for that part?
You know, this really sits at the table of many things that I've been blessed to be a part of. You know, I think the common denominator with all of them is, you know, the humanity in all of it, and it really deals with the human condition. And again, it's stories that, you know, need to be told. You know, it's just as important as underground and telling our story and the culture of getting out there and you know, having the ability to, you know, see the complexities in a way of real life images, you know, of the stories that we've heard about, you know. So continuing to get out there and to help usher that in is important for me. It's important, you know, for everyone in the culture, and I just want to continue personally to find those opportunities that I think, you know, are able to really reflect our everyday reality. You know, it's a quote from Nina Simone that I say all the time and I love, which is, an artist's duty is to reflect the world in which we live. And, you know, that quote has long resonated with me, so I'm continuing to, again, to find, you know, the stories of the voices that don't get to be heard. Excuse me. It's why I'm so excited to see Black Panther tomorrow. You know, it's like all of these things that I think they're, you know, they all have equal importance, you know, and I think, you know, art doesn't deserve to be competed against, you know, it's its own subjective significance, you know, and they're all necessary. So, yes, it sits at the table with The Wire. Yes, it sits at the table with Underground, Red Tails. You know, everything that I've done, I really try to find, you know, big or small, the importance of it, you know, for me. And Jamie is just dope. He's an actor, and I love the opportunity to be able to allow actors to be able to show their range. You know, it's so often that we are put in a box and only seen and think that we can do one thing. You know, again, for him to be able to speak in his natural, you know, tongue, he's Nigerian, and so for him to be able to have that opportunity and to get in there and you know, find that connection to his own life was awesome to be able to, you know, help him do that. But, you know, I love being able to you know, surprise people or shock people with, you know, seeing the versatility in, you know, talent. Because I know how hard and the struggle is to be able to tap dance in different genres and have opportunities to do stuff that people don't think they, you know, associate you with or think that you can do. So to get that opportunity is just, you know, it's awesome to be able to do that, you know, and I love being able to, again, to, you know, help and create these opportunities. And, you know, it was fun getting Jamie in there and letting him do that. He's never been able to do that, you know, and so it's just great.
So I think we're going to wrap this up, but if you want to come down and talk to us, we're here, and we're going to be here for a few minutes. But thanks for coming tonight.